We've said this before. I think it's important to say it again because I think people undersell, quote unquote, the window that the 49ers have in terms of a financial advantage. You'll hear a lot of people, especially after what Nick Bosa just did, boy, if Brock balls out this year, he's going to hold out next year. Not allowed to. Like, literally not allowed to. Brock Purdy at that point will be 2 years into a 4-year deal. He is not extension eligible. So if you hold out, there's literally nothing the team could even do to get you back in camp. So this conversation doesn't even happen until Brock Purdy has played 34 more football games. I mean, unless he gets hurt and misses some, but you get it. 2 more full seasons of football before you can even have the conversation about a new deal, and then that new deal wouldn't even take effect until another year after that. So it's truly, in my opinion, one of those things that's not worth sweating right now because you have no idea who you're even going to want to keep when you get to that point. You don't know who's going to be healthy, who's going to be retired.
Right.
Is Trent Williams playing when Brock Purdy resigns?
Well, George Kittle will be 32.
Right.
And I'd be surprised if he's going to be a guy that you're going to sign again to anywhere near the money you're paying him now, especially after you drafted 2 tight ends this year.
George Kittle will be even older than that, won't he?
He's 30.
He's 29. He's 29. So, yeah, he'd be 32, but 33 by the time Brock's new deal would take over. And with how often he's injured, yeah, you're right. I don't even know if the guy's going to be playing by then. So, yeah, they're in tremendous shape depending on who this guy actually is. Here's what McCaffrey said, because Purdy was named a starter, or a captain, and they asked McCaffrey if he was surprised that Purdy ended up as a captain.
I think when you get to know him, it's not as shocking as probably the public might seem. To me, I'm not surprised at all. You know, he's a hell of a player, hell of a leader, and a guy who's going to be great in this league for a long time.
A guy who's going to be great in this league for a long time. Again, I understand teammates just looking out for each other and saying nice things, but that comment got my mind going to that aspect. I understand that people feel good about Brock Purdy right now, but do you buy that? Like even on another team potentially someday. Do you believe that Brock Purdy is going to be a great player in this league for a long time?
Sure. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a great player in this league, and he has been for a long time. And Jared Goff is a great player in this league, and he has been for a long time.
I wouldn't use the word
You're
great.
talking about you're talking about a starting quarterback in the National Football League and a guy who is cemented as the starting quarterback for his team. And if you want to go around all 32 teams, you've got about 8 elite, and then you've got about 8 guys who are either rookies or fledgling, and then the other 16 is where Brock would fall. And are those guys great? Absolutely. Jared Goff and Russell Wilson, forget what Russell Wilson's done, what he is right now. He's great. And Derek Carr, he's great. He's QB1 for an NFL team.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I understand where you're coming from, and I certainly understand it from the standpoint of, like, if you're the 15th best quarterback on the planet, that's unbelievable.
You're great.
But that's not how we view sports. I mean, if you're going to say it that way, then anybody in the league is overwhelmingly unbelievable. Like, if you're a family member, if you went to high school with someone in the league, it's a big deal. You're like, I mean, this guy was great my entire life. Great. But no, not.
Well, what's Christian McCaffrey saying?
Jimmy Garoppolo is not NFL great. He's not NFL great. He's good.
He's NFL great in terms of him getting a free agent contract with a team for massive money.
Yeah, and then getting replaced.
Not this year.
Not this year.
What did he get paid? $20 million to go to the Raiders? 25? Yeah.
22. Which is what?
That's great.
It's 40% of what Joe Burrow's getting.
Fine. And I don't know what
he's good. I mean,
what is Christian McCaffrey? Hairs. I mean, what's he talking about?
I don't know. I don't know. And maybe he's throwing the word around. I don't know.
Yeah, of course he is.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Like, think about it now.
Right.
Last year, that story of Brock walking behind Trent Williams and Fred Warner. Now, these are legitimately great players.
Oh, they're great.
They are great players.
And they'll be great for a long time.
And Trent Williams already has been. And he's walking behind them in camp, and he overhears them fawning over Brock Purdy, fawning over him. and looking forward to what they're going to see him do next. I haven't seen enough. Put it this way. A lot of people will say, I haven't seen enough to know if Brock is great. I haven't seen enough to know that he's not.
Sure.
I know he was drafted in the 7th round.
Forget that.
I don't care about that.
It doesn't matter.
Like,
Doesn't matter.
Brock Purdy might be great. Like, great. He might be. He
might be Joe Montana.
There's nothing that's happened to dispel that.
He might be the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, he might be, right?
I mean,
who's closer to being the greatest of all time? Brock Purdy or Trey Lance?
Brock Purdy.
Exactly. I mean, and I can play this game with 40 other quarterbacks.
You can do that with every starter in the league, though.
Well, who's closer, Brock Purdy or Pat Mahomes? No, it's going to be Pat Mahomes.
No, my point, but if you're going to compare him to Trey Lance.
No, I'm comparing him to Brock Purdy.
I know, but
because the conversation is how great Brock Purdy can be.
We don't know.
Can be great. Can he be the greatest of all time? Absolutely.
Well,
he's got a chance to be.
Here's what I'm getting at. I'm getting at this. You hear a lot of people go, I think what we saw Brock do, that's as good as he's going to get. I find that to be such the strangest thing. I think that is the strangest thing to say, because at what point in any of our lives would we watch a 22-year-old play for the first 7 or 8 games of his life and immediately, with no background, just decide that's the best he can do? I mean, if that's the case, why is Casey Schmidt still on the team? That's the best he can do.
Yeah.
He's a 200 hitter.
Jeremy Lin.
Done.
I mean, we might have got that one right.
We might. Listen.
After 7 or 8 games.
It can go both ways.
Sure.
I'm not dismissing that. I'm simply saying I find it to be very likely for all humans that the first 8 times they do something, it then gets better after that. Very likely.
It's possible.
Very likely.
Sure.
I find it.
Well, I mean, it's probably more likely than it is less likely, especially in this system, surrounded by this team and this coach and this situation. If you want to talk about this sample size for Jimmy Garoppolo, back when he did it for the 49ers and they went from 1-10 to 6-10, like that to me was more unlikely than this is likely. Even though Jimmy Garoppolo had more pedigree, more experience, and all the rest of it, this is more unlikely based on, Brock Purdy and the fact that he came out of nowhere as a rookie and did what he did. But his team is so talented around him, that makes it much more likely because he doesn't have to carry this team.
Right, but that's in the moment. And I am curious what people think this is going to look like, quite frankly, for his career. I mean, that's what McCaffrey said a long time. Those are his words.
Right.
Maybe he's just throwing them out there. We'll go to the phones here in a second.
Teammate praising his fellow teammate, that's a shock to me.
You don't need to flick it off your shoulder.
I'm flicking it off to the extent that we're going to put too much weight into teammate praising teammate.
But I'm not putting weight in it. I'm allowing it to ask a question.
And I like your question
and
a
I
lot.
wonder what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
And he wasn't done. Here's more from McCaffrey.
It's funny when people ask me about the quarterback position. I'm not a quarterback, and I don't know what they're reading. All I know is when he's got the ball, he looks confident as ever. He knows exactly where to go with it, and then he plays beyond the X's and O's. But he did all that last year too. So I'm just excited to see how he comes back this year, and once again, just happy he's on our team.
I think it's odd that Christian McCaffrey thinks he's not a quarterback. I feel like he was in the NFC title game.
That's all I can think about, Mark.
Yeah, I'm like,
it'd be so cool if he was a quarterback.
Short memory. What's the matter with you, dude?
I was hearing that thinking, man, it would be a lot cooler if you were a quarterback.
What about this?
Because they needed him to be one.
Is Brock Purdy the best quarterback that Christian McCaffrey's ever played with?
I mean, sadly, yes. I'd have to look at all of the...
Cam won an MVP.
Right, but the Cam he played with was not the Cam who won the MVP.
And he went to a Super Bowl.
With Christian? Or that was pre-Christian, no?
No, Christian was on that team, right? When they played the Broncos? How many years ago was that?
I'll Google it. It feels like forever ago, right?
I know, it does. It really does. Peyton Manning was in the league. Cam Newton was in the league. But I don't think that was that many years ago. I want to call that 6 years ago. I call it 6 years ago.
Okay.
7? 6 or 7?
Not 5. 2015. That'd be 8.
Okay. And how many years has Christian McCaffrey been playing? He's 27, so maybe he was still in college.
Yep, not on that team.
Carolina Panthers starting in 2017.
Yes.
All right.
Jonathan Stewart was your leading rusher.
All right. So
Mike Tolbert, the fullback.
So he came right after it. He came like basically a year and a half after that Super Bowl. Christian joins the Panthers. Cam Newton is still
there.
the
Still
very
there.
firm quarterback.
6-8.
So, yeah, he's accomplished a lot more than Brock Purdy, but I also think a lot of people outside of that 1 year didn't have a whole lot of respect for a lot of things that Cam Newton did. I mean, so I'm not gonna elevate Purdy even above Cam Newton yet, but I wonder how Christian feels.
Right.
I wonder how Christian privately would answer that question.
That next year after the Super Bowl, Cam Newton 52.9%.
He was terrible.
52.9% completion.
Well, how do you end up with Christian McCaffrey? You have to be a really bad team and get a high pick.
Yeah. And they had Jonathan Stewart and Fozzie Whitaker also running the ball for that team.
Love Fozzie. Big Muppets fan.
So that waka waka waka. So that must have been 2 years removed when they got McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And they went 11-5 that next year.
Let's hear from some of you, okay? 888-957-9570. Hey, Jonathan in the city. Jonathan, what's up? You're on with Willard and Dibs.
Hey, man, so forget the name, forget where he was drafted. Let me just tell you, if a guy, let's say we're talking about a guy who's a proven point guard, he knows how to distribute the ball at a rate of maybe 70%, right? And not only that, he's got pocket presence. He sees the field. He knows where his outs are, like a Boy Scout. He's always ready. You know, he doesn't throw the Jimmy Ono throws when they're blitzing him. It's just that it baffles me that people are buying into Brock Purdy, but then when you look at the film, you look at the guy, and this guy has he played 10 years? Because he's doing things that I only see with veteran guys, you know, the way he gets out of the pocket. If they blitz him, he knows exactly where to go, where the, you know, where the safety valves are at. And just like I said, he knows how this offense works. And it's like he's been to a master class with Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he's barely started. So all that said, I expect him to be a Pro Bowler at the very least. And he's sustainable because he keeps the offense on schedule. And as a coach, as a head coach, as a play caller, that's that's what they look for on the quarterback. The guy who keeps it on schedule, sees the plays as is designed and schemed. And for the most part, Brock Purdy does that. So I expect him to be a Pro Bowler at the very least. We're in good hands with Brock Purdy. He's a sustainable guy. I expect him to be my quarterback for at least 10 years.
Interesting. Jonathan, thanks. It's funny when people say, I expect him to be a Pro Bowler. I'm like, everybody's a Pro Bowler, the way the Pro Bowl works now. But I get what he's saying. I put it this way. This would be my belief in where Brock Purdy's going. I think that last year was incredibly impressive. I do think that he's going to have a lot of success, as you've said, with this particular roster. What I do think, though, is I think that he will marginally elevate what he did last year. And I don't mean that in terms of record. They're not going to win all of their games. But I think where he will marginally elevate what he did last year is, I think everything we saw last year was real. But in the NFL, like with almost any job, there's a bunch of stuff he hasn't seen yet. He hasn't seen the way defensive coordinators hide things. He hasn't seen the way Pro Bowl linebackers are able to deke him into certain things. And the more games you play, the more of that you see, the more experience you have, the more you're ready to not make that mistake again next time. I think that there will be mistakes. I think that there will be young player mistakes at times this year. But that, I don't think, should trip up the fan base too much because I think it'll be tucked into a lot of wins, probably around 12 of them would be my guess. But I also think that the player you're going to see 2-3 years down the road will be better just because of experience than the player you saw last year.
Well, it had better be because, you know, you're 8 games in, and according to you, the majority of players do get better year over year, and I don't disagree with that. And so you take what he's done now, forget the wins and losses, but take the throws he's made, the interceptions he's gotten away with because they were dropped, the great throws he made that were completions that might have been dropped, whatever you want to look at in terms of how he did incredibly well in terms of being a rookie and starting games off the bench for a Super Bowl caliber team. So between now and the end of his contract, he would hope and you would hope that he would be better than he's been. And if he is better and the team is better and the team wins or they don't win the Super Bowl, whatever happens, he's going to get paid and he'll be a quarterback for a long time if he gets better.
It'd be strange if he got worse.
Wouldn't be that strange. It happens. It happens. I mean, players flash and players wane. And Sam Darnold's a good example of a guy who came out and was better coming out than he was at the end of his 4 years.
I don't know that he ever flashed. Sam didn't ever.
He flashed in college.
Well, sure. A lot of people flash in college and then don't make it in the pros. That's a repetitive story
every year. And a lot of it comes
year.
down to situation. And Brock Purdy's been in one of the great situations all time in terms of a rookie. And Ben Roethlisberger's another good example. He walked in as a rookie to a team that was ready to win, and he won games.
But then where did that career go?
It went only, it was probably about the same, and it went up a little bit.
It'll go to the Hall of Fame.
Right, because of the team he played on.
Oh, see,
if he was a Tennessee Titan, he's not a Hall of Famer.
I don't think that's fair. That guy was with the Steelers long enough to regenerate every single player around him.
Right, and the Steelers win. And the Steelers won before him, and the Steelers have won after him.
Ish. They have not really won after him. Going 9-8 is not impressive. It's nice. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. And
Ben won what? One Super Bowl?
I think it was two. And there's no questioning whether or not Ben Roethlisberger elevated the Steelers.
Sure.
He, of course, did.
But my point is that a lot of these guys are situation-based. Well, Brock Purdy, if he's a Houston Texans, he might as well be Davis Mills.
Yeah, see, though, I totally disagree with that. Like, I'm not saying that Brock's Texans would be as good as Brock's Niners, but Brock's Texans would be better than Davis Mills' Texans. I just see when I hear that, it makes me feel like all the credit is going to the team, and I don't know how we do that because other players have already come in and you can't just be anybody and win with the Niners.
Trey, Jimmy, and Brock, and they all won. Trey won.
Wait, 2-2? Like, what did he win?
Well, I guess he went this year. I guess he goes down as 0-2 because he started the game where Jimmy came in and mopped up.
Well,
and they lost.
They won. No, they won.
Oh, that's right.
They won. Yeah.